Amendment offered by Mr. Landry of Louisiana. At the end of the bill, before the short title, insert the following section. None of the funds made available in this act may be used within the borders of the state of Louisiana by the Mississippi Valley Division or the Southwestern Division of the Army Corps of Engineers or any district of the Corps within such divisions to implement or enforce the mitigation methodology referred to as the Modified Charleston Method.
Pursuant to the order of the House today, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Landry, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have constantly championed the need for Louisiana to protect its fragile coasts and wetlands. I've offered amendments and supported bills that all positively affect the creation of new wetlands and starts to turn the tide on coastal land loss in Louisiana. But the New Orleans District Corps of Engineers office is going to cripple our ability for Louisiana to protect itself from dangerous hurricanes by introducing a standardized method of wetlands mitigation. This standardized method is called the Modified Charleston Method. This method is driving up the state and local mitigation costs of hurricane protection in Louisiana by 300%. And I said only the state and local costs because the Corps has exempted itself from its own method on federal projects. This is why the American people are frustrated at the federal government. It creates a rule, enforces it on everybody else, but exempts itself. The Corps' new wetland rules are actually halting the creation of wetlands. As such, my amendment prevents the enforcement of the Modified Charleston Method within the state of Louisiana for 1 year, forcing the Corps to take a breath and develop a mitigation system that provides for our wetlands without stifling the need for hurricane protection measures and economic development. My amendment impacts only Louisiana. If your Corps district uses the MCM and it works for your constituents, great. Your Corps district can continue to do so. But the MCM does not work for Louisiana. In fact, the state of Louisiana, the Police Jury Association, our association of counties, the levee boards of Louisiana, Association of Levee Boards of Louisiana, Vermilion Parish, and countless local communities have all have severe concerns about the MCM. Moreover, the MCM does not acknowledge that some construction projects actually preserve wetlands. For example, a flood protection levee that protects homes also protects wetlands from saltwater intrusion and erosion. However, these benefits are not calculated. The Corps itself does not follow the MCM, and until it does, local parishes, communities, and builders should not be forced to follow it as well. And I urge the passage of this amendment and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. What purpose does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
I'll rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
The gentleman's recognized.
I appreciate that. I do rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment. While I have some sympathy for the issue that the gentleman has raised, I believe that more consistency should be brought to the way we evaluate wetland impacts, not less, as this amendment would ensure. The Charleston method has been utilized for 2 decades in various Corps districts. The Charleston method is a quick, inexpensive, and consistent methodology. I think that's very important to note, a consistent methodology for use by the regulated public and the Corps. Gentlemen suggest that it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I do not know why in 2006 and 2007 the New Orleans District worked with its federal and state partners to modify the Charleston method so that it better reflected the unique conditions found in southern Louisiana, resulting in the Modified Charleston method. The use of the Charleston method is longstanding in many Corps districts. Many regulatory customers use the tool to assess their potential mitigation requirements for their impact site, as well as credits required at mitigation banks. This transparency in Corps mitigation requirements has helped the applicant prepare a complete application package and determine mitigation costs up front. Suspension of the use of the Charleston method in Corps districts would require that any pending permit application, Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, and pending mitigation banks would need to be re-evaluated using a different assessment tool methodology or in the absence of such, use best professional judgment to determine appropriate mitigation requirements for impacts and for available credits in mitigation banks, obviously encompassing a great deal of delay. All approved mitigation banks with available credits that were determined by the Charleston method would be temporarily closed until a new methodology can be developed and the bank credits converted to the credit system of a new methodology. These banks were established utilizing the credit system of the Charleston method, and until a similar credit system can be determined for these projects, it would not be possible to correlate the new requirements with the old system. We would not have transparency. We would not have consistency. We would have delay, and for these reasons, I do oppose the gentleman's amendment. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Chairman, how much time do I have left?
2.5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing consistent about the method is that it doesn't work in Louisiana. In fact, the only thing that it increases is the amount of land that the mitigation banks can sell. We have parishes in Louisiana who understand that the federal government doesn't have any more money. The residents and citizens of those parishes have taxed themselves to protect themselves from storms. And yet, the formula that the Corps is using is driving the cost of these projects to a point where they can't build them anymore. But yet, some in this body will argue that after hurricanes come in, after hurricanes affect Louisiana's coast, they don't want to pour the money in to rebuild those communities. Those communities are trying to protect themselves at a time when the federal government has told them no as a source of funding. And yet, now, the federal government is going to change the rules. It just doesn't work in Louisiana. And for that, I urge my colleagues to help me pass this amendment. I also, Mr. Chairman, would like to I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record.
Is this covered? Huh? Gentleman from Louisiana.
I would like to. I would also, at the same time, I close action unanimous consent to enter into the record 2 letters from different municipalities supporting.
The gentleman's statement is covered by general leave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Louisiana. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.